would seem the preferred method of communication during this pandemic is in writing, and city and county leaders have put a mouthful on paper to the governor, not happy about how he's handling things. A state lawmaker who's pushed for stronger vaccination laws gets the COVID-19 vaccine. He's not getting preferential treatment. He's on the front lines caring for people with the virus. A night in Denver's safe outdoor space. The reporter tells us what it was like and reflects on the potential future for that model in Denver. And your generosity is enough to pull Kyle away from his week off to suggest who we should help next. I'm Steve Stager in for Kyle Clark. This is Next. City and county leaders are tired of being surprised by decisions made at the state level by Governor Polis. We know this because COVID-19 has brought back the lost art of letter writing. A letter just sent to the governor and seen by our Marshall Zellinger asks for better teamwork.
No surprises and early engagement is the first bullet point in this 3-page letter to the governor sent from 5 groups with long names and short acronyms. They represent county commissioners, cities and municipalities, public health leaders, and hospitals.
It's not a threatening letter. I mean, we're taking great pains to be extremely polite, diplomatic, and genuine about our intent of creating a win-win.
John Swartout represents Colorado Counties, Inc., which helps county commissioners do their jobs, which includes the enforcement of public health orders based on decisions made above them at the state.
We'd be in a better place if we sat down together and identified the problems of getting through this and jointly came up with a strategy to deal with it.
The letter tells the governor the groups support the need for early, authentic, and ongoing engagement in COVID policy development. What do you mean authentic? What is the state or the governor doing that's not genuine?
It's not a matter of being authentic. It's a matter of working with the governor to meet his stated goals, but doing so at an organic level. And organic means at the local level. Kevin Baumer is the executive director of the Colorado Municipal League, which helps cities and municipalities. All of the groups asked the governor to work with them to develop all plans, orders, and restrictions designed to be implemented on a local basis. If local government leaders can't say, we were engaged with the governor's office and the governor's team all the way through, and we agree and we've coordinated this outcome, then that's a problem. The leaders there both expressed to me they're not being critical of the governor. They just want better communication and being involved in decision-making in the future. I asked the governor's office if the governor will meet with the group based on their letter. I just got a response back, and it lists all of the meetings that local representatives take part in already and how there are bi-weekly phone calls or every other week phone calls. It didn't say, yes, we will meet because of this letter. I was just told from the governor's office, Steve, that it happens already. One other thing, they have an idea from this letter that for counties, perhaps you have different restrictions. Maybe a county is red in one area and maybe closer to orange in another area. Why should it be a blanket restriction for the entire county? Allow the local county and city groups to decide maybe we can have some flexibility in certain parts of the area.
Which is interesting because it would seem to run counter to what a lot of public health leaders we've talked to have said of this need for consistency across an entire area because a virus doesn't know boundary lines.
At least with consistency in regards to this story, I think the local leaders just want to be consistent to be able to say, this is the decision we were a part of so we can defend it or not, because they're the ones getting all the angry emails and letters that are now being written as a result of COVID.
One thing that is consistent, there will be a letter and it will be leaked to Marshall. Thank you, Marshall. We appreciate it. 1,428 people are currently hospitalized with COVID-19 in Colorado. That's down 17 from yesterday. 174 patients have been discharged or transferred in the last 24 hours. Our positivity rate continues to trend down. Our current rate is 8.8%, which is about where our average has been over the last 7 days. Our daily new case counts, they are declining as well. Yesterday, we added just under 2,500 new cases. We're averaging a little over 3,200 new cases per day. The one stat that we are not seeing go down right now is deaths. We are losing almost 60 Coloradans a day to COVID-19. That data lags, so it's unclear if we've hit our peak yet. A Colorado state representative is the first lawmaker to officially receive the COVID-19 vaccine. When he isn't in the House chamber, Democratic Representative Kyle Mullica is an ER nurse. As a frontline healthcare worker who comes into direct contact with COVID patients, he is among the first group of Coloradans to get the Pfizer vaccine. He says we can now see the light at the end of the tunnel, and he hopes he can serve as an example for anyone who's hesitant about getting the vaccine.
It's been hard to do this. It's been hard to see people suffer. It's been hard to be able to have to wear masks and stay home and do remote learning. And really, this is kind of the solution to it. This is the way that we're going to get out of this. And to be able to be a part of this and to be able to really show people that this is how we're going to do this. This is that vaccines are safe, that they're scientifically proven, and that we should trust the science and to really know that this is our path out.
The state of Colorado was scheduled to receive more than 45,000 doses of the Pfizer vaccine through today. State leaders expect another 95,000 doses next week if another vaccine gets FDA authorization. About 2 months after reaching a settlement with the Department of Justice over unpaid taxes, Robert F. Smith is getting a Denver high school named after him. Denver Public Schools announced today that a new high school in Montbello will be named after Smith. It'll be called the Robert F. Smith STEAM Academy, and the curriculum will focus on science, technology, engineering, art, and math. Smith is perhaps best known as the guy who paid off student loan debt for the class of 2019 at Morehouse College. Bloomberg first reported back in August that the billionaire philanthropist who graduated from East High School was under investigation for failing to pay taxes on about $200 million in assets. In October, he reached a $140 million settlement with the DOJ.
Hey everyone, I'm away this week, but I'm not going to miss out on our Wednesday tradition, Word of Thanks. Last week, you raised $142,000 to buy holiday gifts and groceries for families in Denver public housing. And so far, you've raised $2.1 million for Colorado's nonprofits in the last 6 months. We do it because we work together. All right, so here's my idea for this week. We know that restaurant and hospitality workers are hurting right now. People who rely on tips to make a living are having a tough time paying their bills during the pandemic. So let's work together to give a whole bunch of them across Colorado the tip of a lifetime. The word of thanks that comes to mind when I think of the Angel Relief Fund is hospitality, because they offer that kindness to workers in that industry when they've been laid off or furloughed due to COVID-19 and its impacts. The foundation arm of Colorado's Restaurant Industry Association provides grants of up to $1,000 to waiters, cooks, dishwashers, anybody in that line of work that is in such trouble right now. So this is money that they receive to pay their mortgages, utility bills, car repairs, and so forth. The nonprofit screens the applicants and can turn the money around in 72 hours. The Angel Relief Fund has paid out 3,500 of those grants to restaurant workers since the start of the pandemic. And when new donations come in, new grants go out. Text the word thanks to 303-871-1491 and I will send you that link to donate. Let's pool together our money and give Colorado's restaurant workers a giant tip for the holidays. Anything helps. As always, I will match the first 50 donations of $5. This is our chance to help our neighbors who are in the restaurant industry get by through a tough winter. We can do it together. Thank you.
Some of them have been gone for decades, but each December over the last 10 years, Aurora police officers have stopped to honor their colleagues who've been killed in the line of duty. We don't recommend sleeping outside in freezing cold temperatures.
I never got to the point where I felt a bone-chilling cold.
One Westward reporter spent a night in the city's new safe camping site and experienced what it's like firsthand. Next. Colorado senator is continuing the war against zombies. We are not talking about the living dead here coming back to life to feast on brains. No, it is something more sinister than that. zombie campaigns. Back in 2018, an investigation by one of our sister stations found that more than 100 former congressional and presidential candidates were still spending campaign money long after their political careers had ended. In other cases, ex-politicians working in the private sector or as a lobbyist donated from their campaign accounts to politicians overseeing their new industry. Democrat Michael Bennet today introduced legislation targeting so-called zombie campaigns. Senator Bennett's bill that he introduced forces former federal politicians to wind down their campaign accounts if they don't plan to run again or before they register as a lobbyist. Politicians could return any unspent funds to donors, the U.S. Treasury, or a charity that doesn't employ themselves or any of their family members. Hey, may I make a recommendation? This is where we point you towards something that isn't ours but is worth your time. There's a detailed piece in Westward today about the life in the city's new safe outdoor spaces. Reporter Connor McCormick-Cavanaugh spent a cold night in a tent at one of those sites the day before it opened, and he talked to me about the experience this afternoon.
Got my tent set up. So these are ice fishing tents. So they already had them set up, but I got all the stuff that I need to sleep in there. And so there's a cot, which is raised off the ground. And then I had my sleeping bag, which I put on the cot. And then there's a heating pad that I put underneath the cot, and then a heating blanket on top. I never got to the point where I felt a bone-chilling cold that I felt before when I've been camping, you know, when the temperature dips low and you just can't sleep when camping. So overall, it was a fine experience. I wasn't particularly uncomfortable. And one thing that kept popping into my mind is, hey, this is much better than camping on the street, because I don't have to worry about anyone preying upon me, trying to take my stuff, or, you know, potentially local authorities or the police saying, hey, you got to take down your tent and move. So, I mean, that gave me a peace of mind in that regard.
I know that there are popular examples of this across the country, like Las Cruces. Mm-hmm. It started as an emergency situation, right? Almost the same scenario where they created this village and it was just going to be temporary. And then next thing you know, 10 years later, they've graduated people out of it. They've brought more people into it. Do you see this evolving like that?
So when I talk with service providers, when I talk with city officials who work on homelessness, there's a great optimism that if these two sites, and there's a third site that's already gotten approval. I don't actually know where it is yet. The city's not revealing that, but there's a third site that we're going to know about in a couple of weeks, that if these three sites work out and there are successful outcomes, that this could be the kind of a watershed moment where the city and service providers could set up these sites throughout the city. And so there's definitely an optimism, and I think only time will tell. They're optimistic that it's going to work, and if it does, then I imagine it will spread.
Connor's covered the heck out of this story. You can see an extended version of that interview as well as a link to Connor's story on the next YouTube channel.
Oh, it was a beautiful day here around the Denver metro area. Plenty of sunshine. Temperatures, though, on the cooler side. That didn't stop people from getting out and about and soaking in that sun. That was early this morning. Quite the sunrise. We do have a few light snow flurries going across the Front Range Mountains, but tonight we're keeping our eyes on the Pacific Northwest, where our next storm system will be coming from. It's cold in the single digits and teens overnight. We'll stay clear until early tomorrow morning when that cloud cover starts pushing into the state. 4 or 5 o'clock, here comes the snow, mainly to the western slope. It'll be in our backyard by Friday. We'll stay in the 40s for highs here in the metro area tomorrow. We'll drop it into the 30s with a few flurries Friday, and then look at early next week, close to 60 degrees as we see our first day of the winter season.
Every day they go out in their uniform. Days like this do remind you that you might not go home that night.
A solemn but important holiday tradition continued in Aurora today, a chance for police officers to reflect on colleagues they've lost and remember why they put on the badge every day. Next. It's a holiday tradition without joy. Years ago, an Aurora police detective made a promise, and each year around this time, he follows through on it. Here's 9 News Crime and Justice reporter Matt Jablow.
Over the course of its 71-year history, The Aurora Police Department has had 5 officers killed in the line of duty, the first in 1981, the most recent in 2007. Detective Michael Thrapp worked alongside 4 of the officers. Today, he once again kept his promise never to forget.
These are days that make you understand that you're human and fallible.
A 38-year veteran of the department, Detective Thrapp was joined today by several other Aurora police officers, both current and retired, placing holiday wreaths at the sites where the 5 officers were killed.
These are days that remind you why you do the job.
They started doing it about 10 years ago, not long after Officer Doug Byrne was killed in a car accident while responding to a call for a medical emergency. Detective Thrapp says he still vividly remembers the days that each of his fallen colleagues was killed. He was especially close to Agent Edward Holcomb.
He loved to come to work. He loved to brag about his 2 sons.
Who was shot to death in September of 1987 after confronting an armed robber. A few minutes after Holcomb was shot, and after a car chase that ended on I-270, the gunman was arrested, thanks in large part to Detective Thrapp.
I saw the vehicle. I ended up crashing into the suspect's truck. The suspect was arrested and taken into custody at that point and was later convicted.
But on this day of remembrance, Detective Thrapp was quick to shift the focus away from his role in catching a killer and towards what he calls the great sacrifices his fallen colleagues made serving the city of Aurora. Sacrifices that Detective Thrapp says should serve as a reminder to everyone who wears a badge.
Every day they go out in their uniform. Days like this do remind you that you might not go home that night.
For Next, I'm Matt Jablow.
Detective Thrapp says he is still in touch with some family members of the fallen colleagues. Unfortunately, they were not able to make it to this year's ceremony. Some restaurants and bars may not survive the winter because of COVID restrictions, and we have a chance to help those employees keep them above water until places can fully reopen again. Our latest Word of Thanks microgiving campaign and your feedback next.
Our Word of Thanks microgiving campaign this week is a chance to tip the restaurant and hospitality industry workers in Colorado right when they need it the most. The Angel Relief Fund provides direct support to restaurant workers who have been laid off or furloughed due to the pandemic. They screen the grant applications and they'll turn our donations into grants of up to $1,000 so that people can pay their mortgages and their other bills, just to hold them over until restaurants are full again. Text the word thanks to 303-871-1491. I'll send you that link to donate. I'll match the first 50 next viewers who put a $5 tip on the table. This is our opportunity, working together to give the tip of a lifetime to some Coloradans who need it very badly right now.
He's got a little fuzz going. Looks good. Your feedback now. Gigi writes in, after someone has received the vaccine, they will not catch the virus, but are they still able to spread the virus? Since 2 vaccinations are required, could they carry the virus without becoming infected? So, Gigi, we've asked health experts about this, and they tell us people should still wear their mask because there isn't a lot of data right now. They hope to have more data from the trials, and we'll see you next time.